one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me for the very first time is our persistent producer. Say hi, persistent producer.
Hi, persistent producer. I forgot you do that, nor did I expect you to start a conversation with me like that. I'm honored. That was so fun.
This is a real interview. This is Off the Dome, not the Dropout Drop-in. For viewers watching at home, I'm fully in my COVID days, so it's a lot of brain fog up here. Liz, thank you so much.
Can I also add a disclaimer off the top, which is that I've been fighting with my setup all day. So Jordan is down here and my camera's up here. So if you see me doing this, I'm like playing ping pong right now. So I'm going to try and stay this way, but I'm definitely going to be looking down the whole time too. It's fine. This is the Dropout Drop-in. No, it's not the Dropout Drop-in. This is the other thing that we do. Okay, let me shut up. You take over.
It's very good. Look, this is exciting. I've wanted to have you on for a while. We've talked about doing this because obviously we host the Dropout Drop-in together. A delightfully fun time. And you are in the midst of your... Boy, I should have come up with something about this before. I was going to say Eras Tour, but that's not.
If you had a way to describe this, I would steal it and use it myself, because this is just a lot is what this is. I'm in the middle of a lot right now, so I would have been shocked and surprised if you had found a concise way of summarizing.
Well, that does lead me into my first question. What do you do?
Other than have a birthday crisis every Leo season, which is where we currently are. No, it's a great question, because I kind of do something that the internet knows about, and then I do things that the internet does not know about. So my bio everywhere is that, like, I live the Hannah Montana double life, because I have this red carpet life that everyone here knows me by. They know the producer Liz side of things, but then there's another side of producer Liz that I've hidden away for the past 6-7 years of my career that I'm kind of just beginning to pull out and expose to everyone. So it's a great time to ask that question, because it's a new answer for the first time. Most people know me for my like pop culture analysis and breakdowns on the internet. I was one of the people that broke the Don't Worry Darling scandal a couple summers back, and kind of followed that story from the beginning well until it was over, and from there ventured into the land of red carpets and interviews and press junkets, which is where my comfort zone happy place is. But behind the scenes for the past 6-7 years, I've worked as a producer in unscripted and specifically in the tech industry. I've been producing tech shows and news and live events and all kinds of different things. And I recently left the tech industry in July, a month ago. Like July 8th was my last day. We're recording this on August 8th. So I'm 1 month out from that entire era of my life, just because I wanted to jump into doing like content creation and my own production building business, which has been really exciting and really messy and really fun for the last few weeks. And, doing things like the Dropout Drop-in, like it really was so much of the motivation to just like give my own ideas a go, because what we do is so much fun and has really connected with people. And to me, that's like the lowest end of the spectrum of what we can do with a property like that. Like we really just jump on a call every week and like chat and then hang up and post it. And like thousands of people tune in and are like, this is really fun and great. And I'm like, wow, if this is what we can do with like the amount of time we currently put into it, imagine if I actually had a brain and a studio with the right gear that we could build and produce from. So that's where I find myself now. We're going to be building some stuff. We're going to be launching some stuff. We're going to be doing the most exciting projects I've ever put my little producer brain on. And that's what I think is happening. There's also like posters fall down behind me every time I record, and like my camera's been buzzing and my audio's been buzzing all day. So I also am my own like technical producer and try to keep the lights on, literally, keep the microphones going, literally, and try to actually create like quality products. And I have a lot of experience running teams, remote teams, to like ship quality podcasts and things like that. So that's also where all this comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're building a new studio, or have built. I don't know where things are.
You're looking at it. This is kind of where we're at. It's not even 50% of the way there, but it's been a lot of like, this is a room where I live, and it's the only room where you can block most of the natural light. So we wanted to flip this into a studio I could record everything from. And so far we're like half the furniture has arrived and half of the tech has arrived, and we've got a lot of soundproofing to do, and just to get this place actually up and running as like a remote podcasting studio. Um, this is the first I've actually had the chair to sit in what I thought I was going to frame the shot as, and we've learned a lot with day one of having the chair in the right spot. So this is stage one of getting a set up and running. Hopefully someday it'll be done, and then we can have a whole, wow, look at the Dropout Drop-in being hosted from a real place you can host things from. But today is not that day.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're close. I still have like things that I have to hang that are just sitting on the floor.
Love that.
So
We should do like a body doubling call where we just get on Riverside together and hang up all the shit that's on the floor around
yes,
us. That can be an episode of the Dropout Drop-in, just complete silence and us hanging up picture frames. I think that'd be really good content.
really good content. I will say, like, you've done interviews with Vic and Katie recently, and those videos have done crazy great numbers on your YouTube channel. Like in the 50s, I think, right? Of I mean, like blowing my stuff out of the water over here. And I think one of the things that's really helpful is you spend actual time with your interviews and like put in clips and like do work on it, whereas I'm like upload the end.
Yeah.
There isn't a question. I don't.
No,
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really proud of those interviews. So having a background in PR is really helpful when it comes to now doing more work on the side of journalism. Like if people don't know, there's a PR code of ethics the same way that like journalists have the code of ethics that they have to work and operate by. So the way that I was trained in PR is very much like the other side of the equation to the code of ethics that journalists get trained and work through, which means that like the first 5 years of my career when I worked in communications and PR positions, there was one summer where I published over 50 features, like of just one-on-one interviews for the place that I was at. Like it was multiple times a week. Like we were just like cranking out these profiles left, right, and center. So interviewing people and like getting really good at doing research and like finding the story with literally no time to figure it out has become like really like part of how my brain is just wired and like how I approach most projects now. It's like there's a very small window where I can get a lot of thinking done to like get something like meaningful built. So then when it came to like the opportunity to interview Vic, it's like, well, not only do I have that skill set, but then also I've watched so much of what Vic's done. Even like Katie, I've been watching Katie since the College Humor days when like the core cast was doing their sketches, and like that whole thing for the past like 8 years or so. So when you have that and you have the skill set and you put it together, it's like there's so much that I could ask, and like there's questions that, like for both of them, I wish I like hadn't left on the cutting room floor because there's just so much to work with, but you gotta kind of find something finite. I also really like the challenge of giving, like when I requested both of those pieces, I was like, I only want 30 minutes with them. I don't want an hour, because if I have an hour, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole, but like let's keep it tight and like lock it in and really get from point A to point B and then like send them out. And both of those interviews I wrapped early. They were both like, oh really? Like you're done? I'm like, yep, that's all I want. Thank you so much. Like get out of here. Like we're good. Which is like a funny way to approach that as well. Cause I think they're used to like, you know, like people are like, oh man, like they're kicking me out of the room. Like the publicist is saying it's time to go. And I'm like, no, I'm done. Thank you so much. That's all I needed from you. Goodbye.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over here, I'm like, do you have a heart out at the hour, or how long can we hang out and chat for?
But I love it. I love, and I think I've said this to you before, so now I'm just going to say it publicly in front of your Patreon. Like, I think that your approach is so fun, and the way that you are able to like level out and like kind of get rid of any kind of weird barrier between like journalist and like talent, and get people to kind of come onto a more, I don't know, like a more like humorous and relaxed and like not wound tight kind of level. I think that's really special. And like, I find it very hard to do that. Maybe because I am so like, I think in those like ethic kind of guidelines and training. So I think very much about like, this is who I am, this is who they are, blah, 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 blah. So I find it really hard to get like candid and warm and relaxed with people. And just from the onset, you're able to get there. So there's a lot of what you do that I'm like, I take notes. I take notes when a Jordan Brown interview drops. I'm like, what Jordan do this time? I'm gonna learn from this.
Well, that's because my code of ethics is how can I make these people my actual friends? And that's number one goal for me. Yeah. But good so far.
Yeah. Drinking water. Yeah, I think it's working. It sounds like it's working.
Yeah.
Or you go friendship or blood feud. It seems like, and there's not a ton of in between.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was very funny. I posted my Reika interview this week to YouTube, and the name of the interview, the title of the interview is "Starting New Feuds with Reika Shankar," and someone commented, they're like, "Jordan, I can't do this and a Brie." And I was like, "You haven't watched the interview yet." And they're like, "I haven't," because I wasn't starting a new feud. I was encouraging Reika to start feuds with other people.
Oh my God.
I think Sam, maybe Brennan, there was a bunch of people that I was like, we should like start feuds with these other people. And she was really on board. So
I'm obsessed. It's so funny to me. It's fantastic. And honestly, like, I live for the drama. Do it. Let's see how many feuds we can start. Can you give, I know this is your interview, who are your top 3 feuds that you want to start with Dropout stars?
Oh, with Dropout stars? I was going to say, I've started a really good one, which is Taylor Moore and Brian Flaherty, Taylor Moore of Fortunate Horse and Brian Flaherty of Many Sided Media. Because in my interview with Brian Flaherty, we, according to Taylor, threatened his life. And so that one's going really well.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, like the Abria one is really fantastic. Boy, other feuds. I don't know
I have one for you.
Yes, please.
I think that you and Lily Do should have a full-on debate. Like, I think you need a moderator, and I think that you two have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I think that would be very good. Also, I just want Grant to just yell at me about things. It doesn't have to be like just Grant being like, "You're terrible." That's great for me.
So funny. Grant, listen, if you've got a cameo, I'll pay for it. I'll send it in right now. Those would all be good. I will say, speaking of feuds, it's always very funny to me because people will be like, "Now we're starting a feud like with me," and I'm like, "I have a Bria already. I don't need like my feuding time is occupied.
Yeah,
full
like
capacity.
I've got S tier done. Like I don't need somebody else to like have a side feud with." Which we did. We got to celebrate our feud very briefly in person this weekend at Gen Con. Yes.
Very important to celebrate your feuds.
Yes.
Knowing.
I did what was described to me afterwards as like a dog seeing another dog, because I saw Bria coming up the escalator, and I guess I did like a head pop up thing, and then did like a run/skip because I was so excited. And when I caught up to her, I went, "On sight, motherfucker," and then we hugged and screamed.
Brilliant.
It was fantastic.
Oh my God. I would just melt into the floor. I don't think I'd even approach. It's like keep 100 feet from. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I wish I'd been there to witness it. If you were able to witness Jordan and Abria, I think you should get like a special pin on Jordan's Patreon or something. Can you do that? Give people like special rankings on your Patreon. You should open a tier.
You know I don't. I have no idea if I can do that or not.
We'll work on it.
Yeah. How did you find out about Dropout?
It's a great question. How did I find out about Dropout? Oh, this is, you know who's gonna love this? So there's one person that absolutely lives for being told they were right, and that's Marissa Longo, Missa Bobissa on the internet. Marissa and I had a podcast called We'll Throw the After Party that we've done since 2020, maybe 2021. It was born out of the pandemic. We were missing having like community to watch TV with, and this is right around the time that Marvel was releasing all of their TV shows like back to back to back, and Marvel TikTok was really blowing up. So Marissa, myself, Alexis Blake on the internet, and then Sly Clone MC, who's also on the Point in Progress podcast. We did the show together every single week. We've taken a bit of a hiatus just because we all have like so much going on right now. But we, for years, every single week, we did this show talking about like, what are you watching? And the first segment was always like, what are you watching and what are you reading and like, what are you loving right now in the world of media? Marissa always talked about the show called Game Changer and Dropout, and was like, Liz, you need to watch the show. And I was like, hi, yeah, you tell me that like every week. And kind of just like blew it off. And then, Make Some Noise started going viral, and Game Changer started really going viral on TikTok. And I was like, oh, like I was sending the clips to Marissa, like, oh, this is what you told me I should watch. Marissa's like, yeah, Like, can you please figure it out? So I like ignored it for a long time, just was like enjoying the clips. And then I started hearing more in the news about it, and I was seeing like when Brennan and Sam did the press tour when they rebranded College Humor to Dropout, and that's when it really connected for me because I was a College Humor fan and watched what they were doing really closely in like the 2017 era before all the business around it getting sold and all of that was happening. And that's when I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. They were so ahead of the curve with the College Humor like core team that wrote all those sketches, and now they're saying that this is like the opportunity. And I really trusted that as like a business move, and not necessarily just like as Sam thinking that that was a direction, but like the entire idea of the mid market streamer coming into fruition and like taking a place and taking market share away from like a Netflix and Amazon Prime. Like all these like huge streamers that do like incredible productions and work, I thought was really fascinating, especially as someone at that point in time, a couple of years ago, I'm in production land and I'm starting to really build my own shows and properties at these companies I was working for. So the first show I watched, I like went for the subscription last summer. I think I turned on Make Some Noise and found like the Noise Boys. I went through all the classics, you know, that you go through when you first get a Dropout subscription. And then my other friends were like, "You need to watch Dimension 20." I was like, I'm not into D&D, blah blah blah. Biggest lie I've ever told in my life because I'm literally the exact kind of personality that D&D is built for. So as soon as like it clicked in my brain that D&D is actually like all of these things and none of like the stereotypes around it, I was like, oh, I get it completely. Do you know the first season of Dimension 20 I watched?
No.
Do you want to guess?
A Court of Fey and Flowers.
Nope. But that's what a lot of people think it is because it makes complete sense with my personality. It was Mentopolis. And I fucking loved Mentopolis. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Trap specifically was like really interesting. And then I learned he was hosting them actually. And then I started to see how the web of like Dropout came together. And I was like, oh, I'm in. Sign me up. And then I went through all the classics. I did like, I did Crown of Candy. I did Fantasy High. I like really worked through. And by that point I was like in. And then I discovered everything they did during the pandemic. And I was like, wow, I really wish I found them sooner because they did exactly what I am trained to do, which is remote first production. So everything that Dropout did during the pandemic era, that is exactly what I specialize in. And I was like, well, it would have been really nice to have found y'all when you were doing that work and I was doing that work. And I felt like I was the only producer on the planet trying to build these like remote sets and doing like remote based shows. So I've since like been able to go back and rewatch what they did during the pandemic and be like, yeah, we were all struggling with the same problems at that time. Nice. It wasn't just me alone in my room being like, I'm the worst producer in Canada. Like, no, we were all struggling to make remote shows work at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna open my door because it's like 1,000 degrees in here. It's a heat wave. It's a heat wave in Canada, people. We're not just snow. Okay. So that's a very long story of how Dropout came to be. A lot of people are owed a lot of credit, especially Marissa, and she'll eat this up when she sees it.
She's not going to watch it. It's fine. That's true. It was like we got connected because you made a fantastic video about Dropout and how like people should be talking about Dropout more. And
you made the most iconic stitch of all time. Like truly one of I think it might be in your top 5 videos you've ever made.
I genuinely don't remember what I did. And it might be the COVID, but it might be because I make so many videos.
So I made my initial video of a Dropout from a hotel, and it was like I was running a huge event. It was nuts. It was remote first, and I was coping by going back to my hotel and watching Dropout like in the couple hours I could sleep in between shifts. And I recorded this video in the hotel, like taking off my makeup, like truly like the most disgusting I've ever looked and felt, and it like popped off in the algorithm because that's how TikTok works. They never want you at your best. They only want you at your worst. And you stitched that video, and I saw it the next morning when I woke up, and it was like, it was like a cold stitch where it's like, I think you just took the first few seconds of the video no matter what I said. And then you say something like, oh, like, I don't understand how there's hundreds of comments on this video saying like, no, it's talking about Dropout, and I exist. Like, how can these people exist and like watch Dropout and be looking for Dropout content and not know who I am? And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I just don't understand how the algorithm works. And I was like, you know what? He's right, and he should fucking say it. And that's how we became friends.
Yeah.
And I was on set that day texting you like, I think we need to do a podcast because like you're completely right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because Dropout Drop-in is an absolute delight. Even though I think we are technically in hiatus as well, because you've been so busy that I think we have like 3 unreleased episodes.
Sure do. Yeah. Sure do. And I'm traveling for the next few weeks, and all I'm doing this weekend is editing and scheduling posts. So
that's fair.
Yep.
Yeah, I do know what video you're talking about now, because I remember I just like scrolling through those comments and just all these people that are like, no one talks about Dropout, and I was like, it's my whole personality. What do you mean no one talks about it? Like, how have you not stumbled across one of my videos to be like, oh look, Jordan's interviewed everybody at Dropout?
So it's so factually correct that is who you are on the internet, that when I go to make thumbnails for our episodes that we do on the Dropout Drop-in, and I'm like keyword searching things like Katie Maravich, Roseate Spoonbill, like trying to find like clips of Katie during that specific scene, you come up. Like anything that is niche in the Dropout universe that you're trying to find video or photo of, you have made a video on and you own the SEO for. So there's so many times you can search like Zacho Yama, Dropout, Noise Boys, and it's like Jordan's face comes up. I'm like, Jordan, get out of here. Like
I have also experienced this when I'm looking for a clip that I want to include in a video and I can't find it because I can only find clips of myself, and I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I don't need my videos. I know what I said. I need
like Dropout talks about having an SEO problem, but like you have an SEO perfected problem where like Dropout needs to be like, Jordan, listen, you gotta stop doing your videos so well because like our shit's not even flagging now in the results. It's very funny.
Good stuff. I have a Patreon question for you about Dropout.
I'm so excited.
And I know that producer Liz has done some improv herself. I'd be curious, both 1, to hear more about that, and 2, to hear how her first-person experience with improv affects how she thinks about Dropout and the questions she asks Dropout performers. I think it's a very thoughtful question.
It's a wonderful question. I'm like shocked that anyone even wanted to submit a question. That's like very fun.
1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 questions, and I posted it yesterday, late afternoon.
Y'all are, listen, I'm blown away. That is a great, great question. Yes, I was the captain of my high school improv team, who I did improv for a few years. So the way that it works in Canada, I don't know what is set up in the States, but we have the Canadian Improv Games, which is like a national non-profit that runs like high school improv leagues in all of the different provinces. So if you have a high school improv team, you can register to CIG and then you can compete in like tournaments and things like that. So when I interviewed Vic, we talked about the Canadian Improv Games, and that is, I didn't cut a lot from the conversation with Vic, but the one thing I did cut was like we talked for multiple minutes just about like, do you know this person? Do you know that person? Like, oh, like Canadian Improv Games, blah, blah, blah. We went like back and forth about it. There is an exclusive for Jordan. I haven't actually said that. I cut all of that, but yeah. So
release the name drop clip.
So I did the Canadian Improv Games. They have like fun training that they do, so you learn like a lot of the theory behind improv. There's different events that you do as part of the Canadian Improv Games. So you're actually studying improv in different like stylings and different ways of performing. So if you look at like comedy clubs that are improv specific and you're looking at like long form improv versus shorter games and things, like that is all the studying that you do as part of the Canadian Improv Games. And then I myself have not like gone to LA to do like comedy classes, but what I have studied remote about like what are they teaching in these classes? Like what would Brennan have been teaching in New York City in this module? Like when they talk about studying a scene or doing this or that, like what does that actually mean? I would like go and read those class descriptions or like read the different reviews of them and be like, oh no, we did that as part of the Canadian Improv Games. So that's kind of where my experience comes in. Like, I understand a lot of the theory of improv, the comedy of improv. When I was in my PR degree specifically, that is what I like. You know, everyone's their own worst critic. Like, I really miss how funny I was when I was studying improv. So, like, now I'm trying to go back and like get back into the roots of like that theory and like that comedy training, because I really loved that side of my personality that I lost to like the professional industry that I joined, where it's very like you're one way and like that's the only way you can be. The way that that impacts the way I watch Dropout is also combined with how I know production works. So I'm watching from both like, how is talent, like when I'm watching Make Some Noise, this is like the most obvious one, or Game Changer, it's all improv, right? Like you're just being fed and like your job is to react. But it's not only that, like you have to find your own character in the scene. This was something really interesting to talk about with Katie in that interview, because Katie's someone that specifically like, it's Katie, but it's like a character of Katie. It's like Katie that doesn't know birds on the Rose Spoonbill scene, which is, I still think, one of the most brilliant like pieces of improv Dropout's ever produced. Like it's Brennan that is getting frustrated about like losing the game, and that is like a character of Brennan being played. So I'm watching like from that perspective, but then I'm also watching from the production side, like how are they actually producing these moments and writing script and prompt to bring those things out in the talent, and then creating set and camera angles and like giving every opportunity to capture all of that at its best. And I think like just one quick story that kind of like brings all that together was obviously the newest Sam Says with Jacob and Lou and Vic is brilliant. And one of the things that I love about that episode, watching it back, that I don't think we really discussed it that much at the time, but the camera work is so phenomenal because they're moving so much, and it's so different from how every other Game Changer is filmed, and that like you almost immediately lose the idea of like you're going podium by podium because you're running and you're going on a bus and you have these wide shots of Lou and Vic, and then the thing falls from the ceiling. So like the way that production had to plan itself to accommodate for like the widest form of physical improv was like so brilliant to me, and that's why they should have won an Emmy. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Someday,
I think that answers the question of how that
was
all
great.
comes together.
Yeah.
Right.
Someday, if you want to hear our thoughts on the Emmys, Liz will upload our Emmy episode.
I'll edit it and I'll post it eventually.
I don't know if you saw, Sam posted recently, he's doing like his own behind the scenes little things about the dummy dropping, and about how like they edited down, because it took like a full minute to recover. He's like, we edited it down so that like they were all talking basically on top of each other, but like that is over the course of like a full minute. And that's just such, again, like brilliant production work, brilliant editing to like keep that scene moving in such an intense and brilliant way. My undergrad degree is in film. So I think it's one of the reasons why I'm good at interviews, is because I understand production really well, and to like having worked on like movies and stuff, so like I have a really good idea of, you know, where things are at and what they're doing. And I think that does, like, it's one of the things, I'm sure this happens to you as well, where like it's an infection in your brain where you can't turn it off. So like the one that I always think about is, oh no, and then instantly I forget the name of the movie. It's the Zodiac. That's the name of the movie. I was like, it's about the Zodiac killer. It's Zodiac. There's like an opening shot that's like 10-minute one camera shot in the car as it moves down the street, and they're like fireworks going off between houses, and I'm sitting in the movie theater being like, the timing that they had to do to like get all of this to line up perfectly and to have this all in one take is so incredible. And I'm like, you are fully missing the movie because you're only appreciating the production. But it's a poison that I can't get rid of.
No, I that is exactly it. And that's part of the reason why like I usually have to watch Game Changer twice. The first time I watch it, it's like it's actually a coin flip if I turn on an episode and the first thing I'm noticing is like I'm into the plot, and then the second thing I'm noticing is production work, or like the opposite. The bingo episode, I could not to this day really tell you what the plot was or even like remember who won, because I was just so invested in how they produced and had like the producer and then like the fake producer and the cameras. Like it was And then I remember the first time I watched the bingo episode, I was just so much wanting a floor plan of the studio so I could follow along like exactly where people were. Like to this day, the one thing I want is not that I would ever release it on the internet, but I just want to know like how far were those rooms and how did they soundproof it and like what were the arrival times so people wouldn't see each other. Like
Yeah.
logistically, it's a dream to watch those masterful episodes because they're bananas. They're absolutely bananas to make. And I've made shit that crazy and I know how hard it is. So it's like to see 9 or 10 episodes in a row of shit that's that crazy is like the stamina it takes to work on a show like that. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable what they do.
Yeah, truly. Another Patreon question, because my brain's not strong enough. Look, my notes for your interview are not up to par.
I'm having a great time. I think we're having a great time here. I feel
also
so bad you're so sick.
This is just a stupid one. So, should Jordan be taught how to end an interview or even transition questions, or do we just love that that's his brand?
Oh my lord! I think you were just read to filth by your own Patreon subscriber. Yeah. The funny answer to me is like, no, absolutely not. Like that's part of the charm of what you do, and like the longer that no one helps you and that you don't look into any reason why you should change that, the better it's going to be for all of us that like watching and seeing you figure it out. I do think it's part of the charm of the Jordan interview is that like you're so enthralled with conversation that like any structure of it kind of like, you know, that's what people call out. So no, I don't think you should. I think that like if I was to give a more serious answer about it, like who cares? Who cares? Not the person being interviewed. Like the questions are so good, and you write questions that are so funny that like if the segue is any kind of way that anyone notices, like well that's what post is for. So if anything, I'm like Jordan, start editing your stuff more, and then no one's even going to call that out. You know how much editing I do to give myself some grace when times feel rougher. It's great.
Oh man,
you know how many interviews I don't have an ending for, and I just cut to an end because I'm like, oh, that's going to be the end.
Yeah. Like the TikTok editing, when I figured out that I could cut out my questions, oh baby, a real game changer. Because then I can do like a 15-second intro where I'm just like, here's the question that I asked, and then I cut out the 1.5-minute rambling question that I asked the person, and then I look smart, and it's great.
Your TikTok editing, I've said this to you. I don't know if I've said this to you in front of or the camera recording, but I do think your TikTok editing is phenomenal, and I struggle with my short form editing more so than my long form editing. So I watch what you do and I'm like, fuck, his hooks are always so sharp. Like how do I write a hook that sharp for my like 30-second clips?
It's like it's a lot of practice. But thank you.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yep. I agree. I completely agree.
It's one of those things where like I've started even to the point where I'm like, how fast can I say the name of the person that I'm interviewing? So that like if you hear me say Abria Iyengar, are you less likely to scroll instantly? Are you going to stay for a second? Like
it's such a game. It's such a game. Like I really envy creators who have entire teams that are just studying watch time analytics and can inform those things. Like I've worked with some incredible data scientists that can give you information like that. And I'm like, I hope that someday I have a multi-million-dollar budget and I can just hire all of you to like come look at my shit and be like, when you use the word or, like 50% of your people will drop. Like it's just incredible what you can do when you practice and work that hard at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I was looking at my analytics the other day, and it was like your users are most active at 4 a.m. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do with that information because I'm not up.
So I'm an hour ahead of Eastern time, which a lot of people don't know. Like there's a weird time zone that's an hour ahead. So I really struggle with my watch times because it's always late for me. Like if it's like a normal time for someone in Eastern time or someone in LA, it's like LA is 4 hours from me. So if people are watching at 10 p.m. Pacific time, like that's 2 a.m. for me. I can't do anything with that. It does mean that early burn gets the worm. Like I can post at 8 a.m. and like people will see it as soon as they wake up. None of my people are waking up early, so
it's very helpful. Yeah. Real question. This is a follow-up to the joke question we just had.
Well, I think that was a real question. I'm going to give that person that. It might have been a little jokey, but I think it was a good one. But yeah, give me the next one.
What's more work, editing or producing? Where do and don't they overlap?
great question. For me, editing. Woof, if you haven't guessed it by now, I find editing absolutely grueling. That's why they're different jobs. Just to say that part, like there's a reason why editors are editors and producers are producers, and there's a reason why um, I pay my editors, and I hope that they think that I pay them well when I am able to get people hired on. Like the first kind of role that I bring to a set as an editor. I have an incredible amount of friends and people that I've met in the industry that are willing to come and edit for me, and people that just really empathize with how much I struggle with it because it is such a meticulous process. I think it's all about your skill set though, and like both of them pull on the same kind of creativity. Um, I think like something that Vix has said a lot in their interviews, but specifically in conversations with you, is how great Tamar was at producing very important people. And part of the reason for that is that Tamar was, and I think Vix actually said the words like Tamar was editing in real time. And I think that that's the overlap, that if you can figure that piece out, you make everyone's life easier. And I like to think that in the time that I spent in the tech industry, I really got to a point where I was able to edit a show in real time and figure out like, this is the natural story that's coming. This is the natural progression of an episode. And I don't just mean like, you know, the chicken crossed the street to get here and that's the story, but I mean like, this is where the energy of the person we've brought to set is going, and like this is where the audience is reacting. So let's lean in more and like get closer to this and really like shoot the arrow towards the bullseye and not just go with like a pre-planned thing because that's what we planned to do. And seeing people like Tamar and hearing the stories from the set of very important people about how like they were able to live edit stories so that by the time it goes to post-production to those editors, they can see like, oh, this is where they ended up. We have the script, we have all the documentation that was given to us about what the episode's supposed to be. We have the notes from set and the notes from the producer around like it's this beat and this beat and this beat. And now we have these files and we're going to put it all together. Like, you can make an editor's job so much easier if you have that clear as day. So my strength is definitely doing that on set and doing that in real time versus doing it in post. But like they work hand in hand. Like one of my most, I work in a very chaotic way, as like anyone who's ever met me knows. But when I was in LA shooting the Canadian Emmys red carpet, where we had all the Canadians nominated, they walked the carpet for Canadian press. We got an interview with Emily Hampshire, who you might know from Schitt's Creek, who plays Stevie. And Emily was on the list of people that might show up. So I was ready for Emily. But Emily brought Bobby from Queer Eye as her +1, which was not expected or on the list. Like we did not know Bobby was coming. I didn't know Bobby was coming for sure. So Emily's walking, and I was positioned towards the end of the carpet, which is my favorite place to be because then I can see everyone coming down the line and I can eavesdrop on questions being asked. So by the time someone gets to me, I can try and find like what's the angle that you haven't been asked about, or like is there something different I can do based on like the other conversations you've had. And no one had tried to pull Bobby into an interview yet. So by the time Emily came to me, I was like, oh my God, did you bring a +1? Like, do I see Bobby? And Bobby came in and we had this like incredible improv conversation. Like I scrapped any notes I kind of had, and we just had a blast for like 2 minutes, and the clip did really well. But it did really well because I sent a voice note to my editor, who was back in Montreal, like 3 nanoseconds after they left. And like this voice message is like the sounds of the party and the red carpet. Like it's so loud. There's so much going on. And I'm like, and then 20 seconds and Bobby left. And then 21 seconds and Emily said this and that. And like my editor was able to use that to like get the clip exactly how we wanted it. And then we posted it the next morning, and it went like 50,000 views in a day.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's just like a moment where it was like, we improv'd, we edited in real time based on like what was happening. We produced it in real time. We were able to say to the editor, like, this is what actually happened. Can you cut it like this? And we had it immediately, and it did well. Yeah. And shout out to the Dropout editors, because there's so few of them. And there's like one sound mixer that does everything. Like, I can't wait to talk to the sound mixer. I owe him a conversation because I'm like, how the hell do you do what you do? It sounds so hard.
It's mind-blowing to me. But yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, it made me talking about like on the red carpet. I don't know why this made me think of it, because who knows? But there is this truly incredible. It's episode, I believe, 400 of My Brother and Me, where they are on the blue carpet because it's um, Jimmy Buffett's musical or something, and Justin McElroy. They have like their book of like here's who they expect to show up, and
Yeah.
every single handsome white man that Justin McElroy saw, he thought was Matt Doyle, and so it's just him over and over going, "Is that Matt Doyle?" To like his brothers as they like just nervously panic about having to interview people. Truly incredible, and I don't envy that because it would make me lose my mind if I was like on a red carpet and be like, "Oh no, I have to be prepped for so many people, and I have to recognize them."
You know what my number one tip is? The most underrated thing you can do for red carpet prep, if anyone ever finds themselves working a red carpet, Google the heights of the people on your list. Because that's the thing that will make you doubt yourself before anything else. If someone shows up and they're way taller or they're way shorter than you thought they were, and then you're like, wait, is that really that person? I thought they were going to be different. But if you Google someone and you find out they're 5'1", and you get that shock out before you're on the carpet, you're going to see that person and be like, that is that person. I figured it out.
That's very
So
helpful.
similarly, if they show up and they're like 6 feet tall and you think they're quite short, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh shit, hello. Britannic, they are both so tall. I don't know how tall they are, but I interviewed them and I like the clip, I'm literally looking up at them. They're both so tall and so nice and lovely. But I just remember meeting them and I was like, you guys are like so much taller than for whatever reason I thought you were. Is everyone you work with that tall? And like Grant O'Brien's so tall and looks so much taller than Nick, and I know how tall Nick is. So I'm like, how tall is Grant O'Brien? Like that's unbelievable.
It's a mystery. No one knows.
I must interview Grant and see how far I have to crane my neck to look at him.
Yeah. It's very funny. Yeah, like I said, I was at Gen Con this week, and so I met a bunch of people that had never seen me outside of this square.
Yeah, you're tall.
I'm 6 feet tall. Yeah.
These are important things to know. If I ever meet you, I'm going to be looking up at you. You're tall.
Yeah. People were surprised. They're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah,
hello."
It's yeah." But yeah, there's no end to that sentence. Yeah, I'm tall.
You're tall. I think that's a conversation in and of itself. The day that, I have a question for you. You met Rowan as well at Gen Con. So I've heard through the grapevine. So now the Dropout Drop-in, Marissa and I obviously have seen each other a bunch. You and Rowan have met each other. We have a distinct gap happening in the Dropout Drop-in panel.
That's true. Yes.
When are we going to meet? What the hell?
Are you coming to Madison Square Garden? That's a thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I guess I am, aren't I? So I'll see you at, there we go. January in New York.
Done.
The best time of year to meet people outside. It'll be
exactly.
Great.
Yeah. It's so funny. I met Caitlin Terrell from Screen Rant as well, and we were hanging out, and she was like, "I'll see you in New York," and I was like, "For what?" And she was like, "Madison Square Garden." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's happening." I bought a ticket to that, but just like, yeah, the brain just like. By the end of the weekend, I was so tired, and now it's worse somehow.
Listen, I ran the biggest event of my career and got COVID from it just at the end of June, which you bore witness to as part of the Dropout Drop-in. It was a fucking disaster. Like it's horrible coming off an event that is that exhausting, and then adding COVID exhaustion to it. It's a trip.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't ask me how tall Rowan is, because I don't know. It doesn't matter that we've met. I don't know how tall anyone is. I don't. I have aphantasia, so I can't picture things in my head. So like, I don't
Rowan's tall.
Probably. Yeah.
Rowan, how tall are you? Comment below.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. It's just like it's gone immediately. Like I remember, I was surprised Vic was as tall as they are, because I hadn't. Sam Says 3 had not aired yet, so I had not seen Vic towering over Sam. But yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
And absolutely nothing. I was to say Abria's tall, but I knew that going into it. So.
Abria looked tall in the photo, even though you both were kind of like leaning into each other a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you were.
I believe Abria is 6'1", so.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I saw my one story of when I was in LA and had 5 minutes to myself. I ran to see ASCAT, and Lou was performing that night, and so was Rega. But we were sitting on stage, and Lou was standing literally like less than an elbow's length away from my partner, who was sitting beside me. And like I fully didn't watch a scene, not because I was staring at Lou, but because I was like, Lou was so tall. like I don't know how tall he is. I haven't googled it, but I was like, wow, like people are tall in real life. Like I was a little bit shocked by the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was like, you're tall. And then you watch Sam Says and Vic and Jacob and Lou. They're all tall. They're all
Yeah.
so tall. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Hollywood is crazy. People are so much taller than the
People
TV
are so much
makes
taller than you expect them to be, because you expect them to be short, because that's the famous thing about Hollywood is everyone is short. But then it turns out improv comedians tall. That's why they're improv comics and not actors. They are actors. Lou and Vic have both been in real movies.
That was Jacob.
Jacob as well.
My favorite fact when trying to get people into Dropout, now that I'm on the train of trying to get people into Dropout, is that Jacob was in Pitch Perfect. That converts a large number of people.
Yeah.
It really does.
It's so funny, because for sure someone is learning that right now that you said it. Even though
that's you, please let us know. I would love to know that I'm the one that broke that news to you. Jacob was in Pitch Perfect.
Yep.
And I'm not going to tell you who. You're going to watch it back and you're going to find it for yourself and be like, no way. And
it's one of my least favorite things is how often people discover it and think that they have discovered it for the first time. That's not fair. I see it a lot. Let's say that.
We've watched Superstore like truly more times than I can count. Superstore is always on our TV. It's one of our favorite shows. And Zach's in Superstore. Mm-hmm. And my partner had never put it together that Zach was the one with the lost numbers in the lottery. And then I was like, that's Zach Oyama. He was like, no, it's not. I'm like, yeah. And we watched it back and he was like, oh my God, that's Zach Oyama. And I'm like, yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And now like Grant is in the commercial for something. I don't know what it is. People lose their minds about that one too, though, now.
I love it. I love seeing people be employed. Truly.
Yeah. It's very good. Good for them. What project are you most proud of your work on?
Oh, this is a really tough question. The unfortunate answer is that I've done a lot of work that was either NDA'd or like I didn't get credit on for like being a producer on because of the way that like certain projects have worked. You get hired to do a job and other labels get put on who like produce that. So that's fine. That's like part of how the industry works, especially when you're not in entertainment. Like I was doing producer work, not in entertainment. So like when you're in a union, when you're in a guild, all these incredible like pieces, all these incredible organizations. Like in Canada, we have like DGC, like all these different ones for our directors guild, like our actors union, and like you guys have SAG in the States. Like you get credit for what you do. And I've done a lot that like I don't have it listed anywhere. You won't find me on IMDb, which is fine. I've done a lot though of work that like I am really proud of. I can talk about it in more like broad terms. Like I executive produced a show that only had one season that was totally different from how anyone else was talking about tech in Canada. It was all focused on like the next generation of founders, like anyone that was 30 and under. So not like quite, it was at a time where it wasn't quite like Gen Z, like Gen Z was still in school. So it was like a little bit like end of millennial, start of Gen Z, cusp aged founders and people working in the industry. And we spotlighted a lot of people doing really cool work from across the country and people combining tech and nonprofit. That was really cool. That got a lot of eyeballs from people that wouldn't normally look at those stories and wouldn't normally like consider young founders in the traditional sense of like, no, these are people that are like doing the same kind of work that like all the big tech founders who are, you know, older millennials or boomers are doing. So I was really proud of that show. I solo shipped that one as well. So I was executive producer. I like, when I say that, like when you look at these jobs in Hollywood, right, because the guilds and the unions do such an incredible job, like protecting roles on set and making sure like if you are hired to do this job, that's the job that you're doing. And there's all kinds of laws and legislation to make that true. When you're not working in situations like that, it means that like the lines can blur. So like that was a project where I truly did every single job, from like all of the marketing and ticket sales to executive producing, talent management, all the technical production, managing the remote studio by myself. And I was like just really proud of it. And I had to leave that project for a different one before we were able to finish that season. But yeah, that was a really fun show a few years ago. Recently, in June, this big event that I was a part of was for a company I was with for almost 4 years. 4 years, 3 years. We did a huge event for a few days, and I was producing like a specific segment of the event that was like the majority of the time that people were spending in the event, they were doing this like specific piece of the puzzle. We ended up breaking a world record, which is like kind of the best note ever to go out on. So like that was really exciting. It was really logistically challenging. Like anything that you've seen at, I haven't been to Gen Con specifically, so I won't speak to that one, but like I've studied VidCon endlessly, and that was a huge point of reference for us. I like the Grammys, the Emmys, anything of that scale in terms of production, in terms of the logistical challenges. That was what we did. It was I feel confident that I could walk into VidCon and like run the shit based on what we did at this thing. Like it was so logistically challenging, and producing it not just from like an event logistics perspective, but from like the talent and main stage and programming and content perspective, and managing all the teams, running everything. Like it was a lot, but it was really made me realize how good I am at what I do. So it was good to get to have it as like a proof point for myself more than anything else that like, no, you can do hard things. But in terms of things that like people can go and watch, I was a producer at TechTO for a long time. So there's some shows from a few years ago that I produced, but there's not a lot that's like public facing that people can find. But you know, it's an interesting way to learn, like for people that might want to be in these jobs and not know how to get there. Like I learned fast and hard working in the tech industry doing this for 6 years. Like I got my hands on every single thing that happens on the set by doing it in an industry that needs Hollywood level talent to work in a tech corporation kind of way. Which means that like I can now come back to the entertainment industry and like do work differently because I've had so much exposure that I can't get working on traditional Hollywood sets, which is kind of cool. So I know it's probably not. I don't know if people want like a list of things I can go watch. I like one of the things I'm really excited about with this new venture is being able to create channels, specifically YouTube channels, and create podcasts and shows that like you can go watch to see like what we can do. So yeah, it'll be fun to actually build something that I can be like, you can go watch this thing, and like that's actually what we do.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Yeah, you'll get there.
We'll get there.
How do you find time between being a fancy producer to make Dropout content, and is it some sort of magic?
I appreciate that question because it sounds like a compliment, and I'll take it as such. It's so the honest answer is that in the midst of producing some really bananas, logistically hard and complicated things, I found Dropout in that story I shared earlier, and it really was like a point for me of like relaxation and like being able to turn my brain off and watch something. And also, as we've discussed, like you can't fully turn your brain off when you have these skill sets and you know what it takes to do stuff like this. So as much as I was enjoying Dropout for the purposes of like turning my brain off and like forcing myself to relax, I was always watching it with the wheels turning of like, I know how they produce this because I produce things like this. I love it. I truly love the properties they do. I love the mid-budget market. I love seeing people with independent production studios build their own things. So when you have like a innate passion for something, it's like easier to find time. And honestly, like creating the Dropout Drop-in with you, now I'm going to get savvy, was a really fun outlet for me as I was going through this insane production that we were doing in June. Like I've been working on that I worked on that for 8 months, which is like any event of that scale normally takes like 18 to 24 months to produce. We did it in 8. So it was like a really challenging, short timeline to build what we built, and like creating the Dropout Drop-in and launching it at the same time is literal insanity. But it was a way for me to like remind myself that, you know, you can do what you set your mind to, and like you can build things for yourself and like have fun and like do things for the sake of enjoying them. And like truly we built the Dropout Drop-in because we both fucking love what Dropout is doing. We think it's Emmy Award worthy specifically, and like we wanted to say some shit about it and like find people that wanted to have a conversation about it and kind of help herd people to one place so they would know, like, guess what, when you search Dropout, like Jordan Brown is a person that talks about it, Liz Duff is a person that talks about it. So it's a little bit of magic, a little bit of insanity, and like a sprinkle of like, why the fuck not? if you can do something, why the fuck not do it? That's kind of what we did. That's my version
Amazing.
of it anyway. Maybe you're gonna turn around and edit this and be like, y'all, like that was insane, and I don't know why we did all that.
You know I'm not going to edit it. I'm certainly not going to do that. I am, however, out of water, and my voice cannot take not having water. So, Liz, if the folks on the internet wanted to find you, where can they find you to follow you for producing and all these new shows that are on the way?
Producer Liz, everywhere. You can subscribe on YouTube. That'd be a big help. My big thing that Jordan is the only person that ever remembers to say this, but now I'm finally going to remember to say it, is helping me do all the things I do. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel because in Canada, there's no creator funds. So, like, I don't get paid for every platform I'm on. The only one that will pay me out is YouTube, which sounds like a capitalist way to try to promote yourself, but when you're trying to make a living as an independent person, I think it's important to tell people how they can best support you. So you can follow me everywhere, but if you really want to help make a difference, YouTube is the place to go because that's where we're going to be launching everything from.
Hooray. I can't wait to see it. I'm
Thanks for
sure we'll
having me.
chat
This was so
soon.
much fun.
This was absolutely delightful. As you know, based on an earlier question, I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.